so many people for you to talk to. We can get you them in all corners of the country. We can get you them via Skype. We can get you them quickly. So, and just on a personal note, I think that, as Ryan said, Define American is really looking to tell these stories and the whole breadth of the stories. It's the stories of allies like Ryan. It's the stories of undocumented immigrants such as Jose and myself. I was born in Pakistan. I am a documented immigrant. But you know what a lot of people don't realize, and what I've heard so much in mainstream media is, you know, well, these people should just get to the back of the line. You hear that, and it's like, you know, there isn't a line. And I think that in a lot of reporting, you don't actually hear people talk back against that narrative and kind of prove that it's not true. And the way that I came to this country and was able to be documented, I mean, you know, my mother had an arranged marriage, and with my biological father, they came here on a student visa. He tried to kill us, and sorry, I have never actually told this story in front of people. Public, so this is the first time she's doing it. Yeah, and you know, it was the only way that we were able to stay in the country is because a senator in Oregon was able to sponsor a congressional bill for us. So, I mean, it's a special bill just for my mother and I, and that is the reason that we stayed here. And I just think that it's so unfair that the only way that you can stay here is to either break the law or to basically almost die. And, sorry.
Don't apologize.
But
so this is what we're supposed to do today. Instead, okay.
Yeah, but
let me just dovetail this. By the way, you know, Sadia is our Chief Communications Officer, and this is how personal this is for us, right? And to see, you know, as a reporter, I don't want to paint a broad brush about the media, but they really are. And we're saying this, we've done more than 400 events in 45 states in 4 years. The level of misinformation is as deep as the Pacific Ocean. Just deep. And the fact that you have Donald Trump leading in the polls, immigration is the cornerstone of his campaign, getting away with everything that he's getting away with, not being called out by the very media that put him where he is now, is to me bordering on criminal and just irresponsible. We're going to look back at this, you know, time as a journalist, because, you know, sometimes people think, you know, I'm fine with being called whatever names I get called. This is what I do. You know, I traffic in empathy and I deal with facts. And Donald Trump does not have the facts. And if we in the media don't fact check him, who will? So that's where we are. And that's why as a media organization, ADAP, Reina, actually Reina, do you mind telling them a little bit about the organization here, like the organization that you help lead?
So we've been doing a lot of organizing since 2010. We started kind of like a small group and then just kind of like being on the front lines, just making sure that people from Arizona were being heard and being heard from the pain, because oftentimes we were struggling with the Beltway in DC, you know, that they were telling us, you have to tell this story and you have to tell it this way, and we kind of got tired of always being in the shadows and always have to say the story in a way that it was okay or it was politically correct, with completely denying who we were and actually omitting our own family members, you know. So after that, I did a little bit of like civic engagement work. Later on, I fought my own father's deportation. He was in detention for 9 months. So for me, that was really important for people to know that, you know, we don't have the luxury to be saying citizenship or nothing, right? And after praying over 100 hours, like of Speaker Boehner, you know, I went to his house, delivering letters and doing all that, and still having some of the advocates, some of the allies just telling us, it's not your time for you to say that. And we were like, well, you can tell me this, because at the end of the day, I have to go and look at my little sister's eyes and tell her I don't know when dad is going to come home, you know. At the end of the day, I have to go to my mom's in Arizona, all the mothers there, and say like, oh yeah, people are saying citizenship or nothing. So going back to the state of emergency, right, getting bombarded with like those Facebook messages that is like, my dad, my uncle, my brother, my sister is in detention. Can you help me? Can you help me? And then at the end of the day, those people in DC are not seeing the people in the ground, are not seeing or living the pain. We are.
Yes, so by the way, Jose's question to O'Malley was, what is your strategy to challenge Bernie Sanders? See, I really looked at it. Just want to say that. Oh, yes.
The life of, at least in my profession in recent years, has been that of a speed up. Having to do vastly more work than was formerly Seattle, I have an enormous resource by the name of Pavan Rajapuram, the communications director at One America.
Yep.
He is an almost a one-stop source in terms of putting me in touch with people and so on. I have to think that, that nationally that is an acute need to be able to do kind of what Media Matters does on crazy remarks by Republican candidates. I have that source in Seattle. It is invaluable in view of the fact that the speed with which we have to turn over stories. And I think that that should be high on your minds. Simply the volume of work that has to be done. And has to be done very quickly.
It's glad that you pointed out Media Matters, because we're actually working on a research project with Media Matters right now. But let me also suggest, though, that the facts are critically important, and it's critically important that we check the rhetoric with the facts. But so often when we talk to journalists at Define American and try to encourage a human story in every piece, it's viewed as an after effect. And the person writing is questioning, well, how can I fit in this story? To which I would suggest the story is that person. The story is their story. The story isn't what committee is going to hold up the bill. The story is this mother's getting ready to be deported, and she's got to talk to her sister. She's got to go home from talking to that congressperson and look at her sister's eyes. That's the story that I would suggest, and how it interacts with this legislatively broken system.
I mean, here's a perfect example. What happened in San Francisco being about Sanctuary City when really it's not about that, right? What's happened now is Bill O'Reilly is trying to get Congress to do Kate's Law. And anybody who knows anything about immigration, which is a very complicated process, right? I have 17 lawyers. I'm sure, we're all lawyered up. So for Bill O'Reilly to say, let's put a 5-year sentence on somebody who... Didn't anybody research on Fox News tell Bill O'Reilly that when you get deported and you come back, there's a lifetime ban and bar on you? Did anybody know? This is a fact. This guy has gotten in and out 5 times. I'm sorry, what was that?
Does Bill O'Reilly care?
But that's the thing, though. I mean, that's a perfect question. But yes, but what happens of the reporters who are reporting on what Bill O'Reilly is doing? When do we call bullshit just actual reporting? We have to call bullshit on people. This is bullshit, and it's the reporting is bad. Yes, sir.
The problem is, it's like, because it's such an issue for yourself, you have the facts, you have the information.
Yeah.
The problem is, what needs to be done is to provide a resource for reporters to go and actually get.
We're actually planning something right now, which I'm not going to tell you because I want it to be a surprise.
Because we all report.
Yeah, but we're planning something to, especially now that Donald Trump is. It looks like he's in this, it's a reality television show and people are watching.
No, actually, he's waiting for Hillary.
He's watching for Hillary.
He's going to start accusing as the vice president, and it's going to happen, and he's going to get nominated, and he's going to say everybody at the end, hey, I was only kidding, folks. Hillary's my best friend. Vote for her.
He's donated more to Democrats than he has to Republicans.
Well, the Huffington Post editorial board just decided that they would report on his campaign.
And then entertainment pages.
But let me also say, this new, I'm of course I'm proud of it because it's our organization, but the new storytelling tool that we have allows people to search for stories in every state and locality. We can even drill down even more and get stories that have specific angles. And hundreds of people have gone online to tell their stories, each and every one of whom, whether it's an ally and a part of what Jose has referred to as the 21st century Underground Railroad, or an undocumented American themselves, or a dreamer that's fighting for themselves or their parents, is a brave soul. And that is an immense resource, I think, for media, because the search function now of those stories is better than any storytelling platform really on the web. And you can just go on and say, hey, look, I want a story of this kind, and we can link you up.
Again, is there a spot where when Donald Trump gives some bit of made up information that you can just go plug that in over here and go, that's honestly, I'm the main guy on the radio in Allentown. I do that. I have, all my close friends are on the Blaze, right? They hate me, we love each other.
Of course.
But we trash each other every morning, every day. And I spend my whole morning calling bullshit on them every day. So it's so much easier that I can go, they say something and I go, 5,000 people see it just like that every time I do it. So.
I would encourage you to visit our social media. We're really active, and in particular, we fact-checked Donald Trump. We created this really cool graphic. That's something that's really great to share with your audience. So there's not a specific tool on the website that allows you to do that. It's a really cool idea. But if you just start following us on Facebook, on Twitter, we're very responsive, we're very quick. So, as soon as Donald Trump made those statements, I think we have the graphic up within an hour or two.
Well, if you ever want to be on the Blaze, let me know, because I can get you on there tomorrow. I can get you on that. I can get you on that the next app if it's before 3 o'clock. I can get you on it down.
I think today has been. I think today I'm done. I think I'm done.
I'll say though,
Oh gosh.
Latino on the Blaze
is
like a dear friend of mine, and he's on between 12 and 3 today.
No, so we're going to get you on. Any other?
Y'all, if there aren't any other questions, I just want to wrap up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Young journalist. I actually double majored in Spanish and journalism, and up in the Pacific Northwest, and I now work in San Diego. I'm really interested in this coming out project you guys have, because I've had, some trouble trying to get my own stories to come out themselves because of the stigma of, people, knowing, and then police, responding to that, or, just they're scared.
Of course, as they should be.
Yeah. So as somebody who is trying to get these stories, maybe on their own, and obviously with resources like yourself, how
we can definitely do that. So let's connect. By the way, I want to contextualize this a little more. Coming out isn't necessarily, as somebody who's done this twice in my life, coming out is not necessarily standing in the corner of the street and putting a sign up, although people do that and they should do that, and that's wonderful. To me, coming out, it's like, this is what I hear our stories all the time, and I'm sure Raina and Jose does as well. People just telling your coworker, just telling your best friend who's wondered all these years why you can't get outside of the country, you can't travel. This is why the parallel between LGBT rights and immigrant rights is something that we've been very explicit about. It's about dignity, to be able to kind of stand in your own truth and not be criminalized because of it. I have a right to walk from here to there and not be called a criminal, And so it's more than just a political stance, right? This is a conversation that we have in our own family with our networks. I'm really proud to say just 2 days ago we had this guy, English guy, white English guy, Gareth. He contacted us. He said, I'm ready to come out. He comes out on national television online, and it was kind of crazy. And he talked about he's one of the 40% of people who overstay their visa. And he said that because he's white, nobody ever thinks that he's undocumented. I hear from a lot of undocumented white people who feel really guilty about how they're not a part of the conversation. What I tell them is, look, I don't force people to come out, right? I haven't done it twice. You do it when you want to do it. But the silence is unbearable, especially at a time of such noise from people like Donald Trump.
And just to talk about race and immigration, Jose also has a fantastic documentary that is airing on Wednesday.
Called White People.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Yeah. So I hope you'll tune in to White People. We are going to try and start a national conversation online next Wednesday with that hashtag, white people. And I'll tell you what you won't see is that the roots of this film in many ways came from some of those events where we're going all around the country, and Jose gets asked, like I'm sure a lot of people of color get asked, where are you from? And there's one young man who probably sounds a lot like me, and looks like me 15 years ago or something, from Georgia, who says, but no, where are you from, though? Jose says, but where are you from? And the kid goes, well, I'm white. I'm an American. I'm from around here. To which Jose gave the line that he gave today, which is, well, do you know white is not a country? And I think what your meetings were was I was born in the Philippines, but I'm American as far as I'm concerned. And so we started this conversation, and we've been going around the country, and every time we speak in classrooms, we ask people, where are you from? And what's shocking is how many of those of us who are white are really paying because of our privilege. We don't even investigate where we are from, as if we are also not immigrants, right? And I can't tell you how much more meaningful conversations about race and about immigration have been when my family started investigating our history. And I learned the stories. I always knew that my great-grandmother was Native American, but I never knew the stories. I knew my grandmother was from Puerto Rico, but I never knew the stories of how becoming a territory changed the life of her side of the family in America. And the stories of my German ancestors who came before the United States was a United States with no documents. They didn't come with any documents, right? And so as an ally, I would argue that this conversation, white people, is, we hope, a connective piece between immigration and race.
You can't separate the two. You can't. All you have to do is drive around Arizona. All you have to do is go to Texas, where I don't know what is happening in Texas. Did you get a story about they're denying birth certificates to mothers and parents who don't have papers? Like, that's a big national story. So for us, this is, look, we're trying to do a lot with white people, and it's going to be pretty crazy when it airs. But for us, the tying of immigration, if I can't get young white people in America to realize that they come from immigrant families, right, that they too have a story about it, and how dare you ask me where I'm from if you don't know where you're from? How can you see me fully if you can't see yourself fully? That. And so I think that's where we're coming from with this. Before we end this, I have to say, by the way, Sadia, that was the first time she ever said that story in front of more than 2 people. So can you just please, thank you for doing that, and thank you for coming to this. And